Hello and welcome to our first Instagram Live. Around this time last year, we launched the Saturday Live to track the industry and brought you sessions on subjects that mattered to you every week with experts from across the globe helping you upskill in real time. This month, we focus on building the next generation in public relations and communication. The first in the series we take on this month will focus on showcasing a different career path of growth in the industry. We invite strong new voices from the communication industry who've carved out their own path on the global level, which will inspire you to follow in their footsteps. And today we have Sneha Deshpande, Strategic Partnerships, Devices and Services, Google, Australia and New Zealand, joining us for a chat. Before I add her on, a quick shout out to our media partner Campaign India, industry partner CII Young Indians Mumbai chapter, and my wonderful co-founders Pooja Trehan and Sonali Sokal. A little bit about Sneha before we add her on. She comes with over 18 years of experience across domains and businesses, strives to bring the best to partnerships, creating a win-win situation in all her relationships and negotiations. Sneha started her career as a public relations consultant and has experience across multiple integrated marketing communication processes. She moved out of the PR agency network to join eBay and then Google. At Google, she's worn several hats and moved up the ladder to now lead strategic partnership devices and services for Google, Australia and New Zealand. So let's add her on. She should be joining us momentarily. Yes, here live with Sneha. So grab your cup of coffee or tea and we'll be done in 30 minutes. Hi, Sneha.
Hello. Hi, how are you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, so let's get right into it, right? So now, I want to start by asking you, what got you into PR?
Wow. It's a long story, which I'll make it really short. The night before I was deciding what I'm going to do after graduation, whether I was going to join PR, journalism, or events, a friend asked me to write 200 words on women empowerment. And I was lazy. So I said, fine, I'll just drop journalism and do PR. There can't be any writing in PR, surely. And boy, was I mistaken. So that's how I got into PR. It was just, one night's decision.
Really? So can you, for the benefit of our audience, trace your journey from PR to strategic partnerships?
Of course. So I started in PR in an agency called Lin Opinion and Lintas. So Kavita Lakhani, who heads Wiki, is from there as well. And there I rose from starting as an account executive right up to leading the financial practice. And after about 3.5 years of PR, I then joined eBay in their corporate communications division. Now here I worked for many, many years in eBay, almost 4.5 years. And that's where I started jumping. So within corporate communications, we started creating events and creating campaigns to actually increase marketing profile. And I'll talk a bit about it later on. But from then on, I jumped into marketing. From then on, I jumped into sales and I set up the advertising business for eBay, India, Malaysia, and Philippines. And so about 7.5 years, 8 years into my career, I was like, okay, what's next? And I started looking at opportunities outside of India. So then I tried to, via LinkedIn actually, I applied for a role in Google. I was going to move to Australia. And you know what? One day after touching Australia, I got 4 interviews into Google. 1 month later, I joined Google. And 10 years on, here I am doing something completely different. I'm in hardware sales now. So, life just takes you on journeys.
Awesome. It's a very interesting story from PR to complete marketing, into hardware sales and for that matter, right? But when you decided to shift, what was running through your mind at that point of time? Was it intentional or, you just decided that this is what I want to do?
I believe in saying yes. So I
Okay.
believe when there's an opportunity, you say yes. When there's
Right.
something exciting coming, I'm a lifelong learner. I love learning. And once I master something, that's when I want to move on and do something new. So every time there was an opportunity that was presented, I was like, yep, I'm on it. I want to take that opportunity. And then life's a jungle gym, career's a jungle gym. You want to always, skill up. And so that's what I was trying to do, just skill up and move on. And here I am.
That's interesting. We had Nandita Lakshman on one of our earlier chats, and she also spoke about building a career like a jungle gym, right? It's a very, very
Yeah.
interesting philosophy. Can you talk a little more about that? How do
Yes,
you kind of,
absolutely. Yeah.
sorry.
No, absolutely. I think you can look at your career in two ways. One, you can be really, really amazing and excellent at what you do and have a specialist role. And then you go straight up the ladder and you just be the best you can in that role. And that's, one path. There is another path where you can actually jump around and just, take your life or your career as a bag and you add skills to it. So PR gave me writing skills and, selling stories to the media. So there was sales involved. There's negotiation involved. And you upskill from there. And events gave me another skill of, thinking on my feet and juggling different things at the same time and being, meeting deadlines. So you just keep on adding skills. And that's what I mean by jungle gym. So it doesn't have to be a linear progression from, account executive to manager, managing a team, then heading, something, and then just going straight up to CEO. What you really want, what I would really enjoyed is learning different things. So I can proudly say whenever I finish my career, that I would have done at least 10 different roles in my lifetime. I'm on number 7 or 8 right now.
Awesome. You are very close to completing your list on that. But I'm sure there's a long way to go. But since as PR professionals, we are not really strangers to deadlines, but we are pretty much, we kind of are we are strangers to, let's say, being salesy, right? All throughout our PR career, we are told, make your pitches, make your communication non-salesy. And right now you are in something which is diametrically opposite to
Yes.
what has been ingrained in us in PR. So were there any
Mhm.
specific skills that you said that, okay, if I am to turn from non-salesy to salesy, yeah, what is it that you needed to acquire? What did you have to, kind of overcome to be able to excel at this role?
Great question, actually. And if you connect it to your previous question, which was, how do you upscale?
Right.
There was a really lovely analogy that I heard in a Dale Carnegie training once, and it said that your career is like an axe, and if you don't sharpen it, it's going to get blunt very soon. So what I did was continuously training myself and training on the same topics, but from different streams can actually give you different insights. And I hear you when you're saying that we're told not to write salesy. But if you really think of it, when we are talking to a journalist and we're trying to get them to write our story versus somebody else's story, we are selling. Where we don't know that, but we have the natural tendency to talk about our product. Whether it is a restaurant or whether it is a financial statement, we are selling and negotiating every single day in every role that we do. So it's just a matter of kind of polishing it bit more to get where I am.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, let me reframe that question, right? What are the skills that you took from PR into the current role
Yeah.
that benefited you? And what are the ones that you felt that this is something maybe I need to learn?
Fantastic question, because PR gives you so many skills that actually stay with you. You never kind of lose them. So let me tell you about the few ones that come top of mind. So the first one is a writing skill. So even where I am right now, I need to make presentations. I need to write documents. I need to write, business cases. And you learn that through your PR articles and your press releases, how to synthesize everything and put it in one paragraph right on top so that they get the succinct message within, to catch the audience and keep them engaged. So that's definitely a PR skill that I've kept. Another PR skill I would say is, how when we are, and this is, maybe old age PR, when you're talking to multiple journalists, you don't have the same pitch to every journalist. You kind of modify it to their newspaper, to their magazine. So modifying an existing sales pitch to suit your audience, again, it's a fantastic skill, a lifelong skill, I would say, that I carry with myself. Some of the skills that I absolutely have not used is faxing and printing out press releases and putting them in envelopes and dropping them. I don't miss it at all. Also, chasing photographers to take the right photo opportunity. um, I think like that. Like, to be honest, I think photo opportunity, it's always top of mind, but I don't use it as much in the new role.
Okay. And what are some of the skills that you kind of picked up, you had to pick up along the way or upskill yourself to be able to meet the current challenge?
Um, the biggest one is negotiations. And if I were to give one advice, I would say that, skill up on negotiation. Because
Yeah.
when you move outside of pure play communication, when you're working with different stakeholders, you will learn to negotiate, you will need to negotiate. So knowing when to keep quiet, when to use silence to your benefit, when to
Right.
actually, push, how to create a win-win situation is, that was something I had to learn new. I would say that I didn't have it when I was doing PR.
Yeah. That's very, very, valuable advice. I think it would be good for people to use that in general life as well. Yeah. And it's interesting that you mentioned writing as a skill. That is something that you still use, and it's so invaluable. Imagine if the fresh graduate out of Xavier's would have known about it at that point of time, who thought she didn't have to write.
Yeah, exactly. And writing, I think it comes naturally once you've done it for a few years through PR. So now if you're writing, whether you're writing business cases or emails, you don't lose that skill. You don't lose writing, and you can whip up words and quite quickly. So it's a very, very good skill, I would say, that PR teaches us.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, that is one of the reasons that I love being in PR because it gives me an opportunity to, use my word skill, right? We have an interesting question from the audience. What was your first day at your job in
Mm.
Australia like? What was the first day like? What were some of the shockers that you had? What was something that was pleasantly surprising?
Um, I'll just say that, like, Google Australia, as would be any country, any company here, is multicultural. So Australia is a melting pot, much like Bombay, that it's multicultural. So you have different accents. So day one at my job, I was dealing with a Scottish English accent, an Australian accent, a German accent, a British English accent. And for someone from, Bombay, India, all I knew was American and British. So, some of these accents really threw me off. And I had a headache by the end of the day just because I was focusing and trying to really understand what they were saying and not come across as a complete idiot. So that was for me, it wasn't a shocker, but it was just a little bit challenging. Something I had to get used to, just
Right.
the different accents. And pleasantly surprised at the friendliness of Australians. I mean, they're just so friendly, so casual. Everybody's doing their job, but they're not taking themselves too seriously. And I
Right.
kind of like that. Like, that's, you want life and work to be a part of the same sort of, nice bubble that works together. You're not really fighting one against the other. So, that definitely helped me.
That's lovely to hear. We have another interesting question from Michelle. What could possibly be the difference that you found in the marketing and communication industry in Australia versus India, since you've been a part of both? Could you help us spot out the differences between the two?
The biggest difference that comes to mind really is the pace. I think India is just really fast, just really, really fast. And you're like continuously doing things, and there are multiple things that you're doing. You're not really focused on just one thing.
Right.
And that's exciting, right? When I was in India, I was learning so much. Every day you're learning something new, whether we were launching Red Bull or, Viagra even. It was just the space of industry that was just crazy. And also innovation. I think because in India we are starved for resources. We're very innovative. We're very entrepreneurial, which is fantastic to see and fantastic to learn from. Similarly, on the Australia side, I think it's really amazing to see the breadth and the depth of differences. We talk about India being a big country, and
Right.
not, like you've got your rural India and urban India. And similarly, Australia is a huge country. So we can't just talk about Melbourne and Sydney. we're also talking about someone in Alice Springs or someone in Perth, and how can we actually communicate with them. So it's just the depth and breadth that's, quite different and starkly different from a marketing communications point of view. It's like one brush does not paint all.
Absolutely. And I guess they are pretty similar in some ways as well, because like you mentioned,
Yeah.
there are so many different regions, dialects, and communities that you deal with. I guess being in India and working in the PR industry here, did it give you a good grasp on dealing with different communities at the same point of time?
I think so. I think it opens up your mind to diversity. I think what
Right.
India does is, because we're such a diverse country, it definitely allows you to think through and not be just, A is equal to B is equal to C. You can actually just expand your mind and be able to wear different hats and put yourself in others' shoes. So, absolutely. I genuinely think my experience in India has helped me so much.
Absolutely. I've often heard we've had a lot of global speakers come on board and speak to us about their career paths. And I've often heard a lot of them say that if you worked and survived and thrived in Indian PR or communication ecosystem, you'd probably survive anywhere else. So, yeah, so
Probably.
we have an interesting question again from our audience. Sonali asks, so do you think Asia is overall more hierarchical, has more hierarchy and is more formal as opposed to Australia?
Yes, I would say it is. Whether that's good or bad or right or wrong, I don't know, but definitely there's more hierarchy. There was more, don't leave till your manager leaves kind of culture, even in Japan. So I worked I've worked with the Japanese team, and I've worked with Singaporeans, and I've worked in India, obviously, in Malaysia and Philippines. There's definitely a lot more bosses right. Let's please the boss. Let's make boss happy. Whereas whether it is because of Google, or whether it is because of the culture in Australia, I think I'm just able to question things a lot more in my current role. If I just want to know more information, it's not about disagreement, but it's about respectfully questioning the process, the system, the goals. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? And I think that's very good if you're building a team, it just builds the psychological safety that you can question it and it's not taken personally. So the hierarchy is quite non-existent in Australia, I would say. Again, I
That's
have the experience of one company, so I only have experience of Google in Australia. So there's a little bit of Google and a little bit of Australia in my answers.
awesome. No, that's perfectly fine. But I believe, there is a change happening all over the world, and we are glad that it's happening in our country too. So,
Yeah.
what does your role currently entail? What is it? What does it mean when you say, you're looking at strategic partnerships?
So I have a dual role right now. So one part of my role is working with telcos. So,
Right.
like Airtel and Vodafone in India, we have three big major telcos here in Australia. And so one part of my role really works on selling them made by Google products. So Google
Right.
is creating a lot of products such as the Pixel phones, the Google Home Mini, the Google Nest Hub. So one part of my job is to sell to these telcos to ultimately sell to consumers. And so we have to keep the consumer in the mind. We have to keep in what the telco really wants to say, what is their brand proposition, and then talk to them about it. The second part of my role, which is about 9 months in, and it's really new, is I'm setting up the SMB partnerships role within Google devices and services. So this really means that I'm setting up a business for B2B selling. When I say
Right.
B2B or business to business, I really talk about, let's say, small and medium businesses. So this could be, your neighborhood shop, and how can I get them for their 50 employees to use Pixel phones or to use Google Home Mini, or it could be an acquisition place. So credit card companies would want to give gift with purchase for anyone who buys a new credit card. How can I work with credit card companies to enable that? So these are like bulk sales in some sense. But it's more about setting the processes, ensuring that the business has legs to stand on 2, 3 years from now on.
Interesting. It must be exciting to work with, new innovations in your career.
Yeah, it's what excites me the most is I'm doing stuff I've not done before. So it's a little bit scary. It's a little bit scary and a little bit exciting at the same time. Uncomfortably excited was a term that we used to use a lot one time ago, and I think I'm uncomfortably excited to grow my skill set, I would call it.
uh, it's always a risk. Every client that you work with, every brand that you work with, it's always a 50-50 chance that it would succeed, it would not succeed. But I think when you are working with new technology and new innovation, that pretty much becomes, that entire balance goes for a toss. We have an interesting question from Pooja. Google is known for its work culture. Can you share a
Mm,
few practices that you think that, other brands or the communication industry can kind of adopt, that it would be good for them?
absolutely. Absolutely. There are a couple that it amazes me that it doesn't happen anywhere else. And I'll say the first one, which is about creating a feedback culture, a culture of feedback, where you ask for feedback and you get feedback, and the feedback comes from a place of goodwill. So even if someone is telling me that, Sneha, you talk too fast, it's coming from a place to help me slow
Mhm.
down, help me become a better presenter. And I think that culture of feedback, if you can create in your team, if you can create that place where each of you can give good and bad, it doesn't have to be just developmental, it could also be positive feedback, really helps the entire team to skill up, so
Yeah.
it's like lifting everyone together by making everyone better than they are. And on the same course of feedback culture is, when I was in India, we only received feedback from our manager down. So at the end of the year, they would be, they would say, "Oh, Sneha, last year you did this good, that bad. I think next year you should do this, that. Here's your increment." What's different in Google is you have a 360-degree feedback culture. So I get
Mhm.
feedback from my peers, I can
Mhm.
give my manager feedback. I get feedback from my manager, and all of it is done at the same time. So it's not really quit. You can't really be malicious about it. So I'm giving him feedback the same time he's giving me feedback, or I am giving my peers feedback the same time they're giving me feedback, and that really helps round you up as a person. So that's one thing I highly, highly talk about. The second thing I would say, and I'll keep it short, the second really exciting part is working on things that are outside of your core domain. So
Right.
just because I'm working on X doesn't mean that I put my head down and work on X. I can actually talk to others and understand what they're doing. And there is this collaboration going on where everybody is a part of a big sort of movement. And we're all trying to help each other go up, which I think is exciting for a personality like mine, where I would get bored doing just the one thing. So I like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, generalist in nature, you know, it's just fun. It doesn't have to be just because it's your job, it's like something that you're doing it because you love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of us who are in PR love the vibrancy of the field
Yeah.
because there are, you work on a different set of accounts and you keep your gray cells alive. You're thinking on multiple fronts. It just, keeps the spark alive. Uh, there is another good question from one of our audiences. You seem to be, very intent on, and you've been speaking a lot about learning, keep learning, training, upskill, right? Upskilling as well. One, how
Yeah.
do you find the time, right? Second,
Yeah.
what is the specific, set of skills that you're looking at upskilling to for your next role?
um, I'll share a secret. So when you're on LinkedIn and you're looking at roles and you're like,
Yeah.
oh wow, that's a great role, I wish I could apply for it but I don't have the skills for it. Write down the
Right.
skills that the role needs. Write down what makes you excited about that role, and then create a plan to meet there. So there are times when I would be looking around and I'll be like, oh, that looks amazing, but there's no way I have analytical skills. So what do I
Right.
do? I start joining data analytical training sessions or look for sessions that teach me what I need to get. Learning is lifelong. The way I make time for it, and again, like I did my MBA recently, I completed in 2019. Um, if you want to do something, you make the time for it. It's as simple as that. So I would get up like a couple of hours early in the morning and study early in the morning, then go to work, do a full day's work, come back, cook, have dinner with my, husband, have a chat, spend some social time, and then go to sleep. So I found time in the mornings. I read a lot of, YouTube videos while I'm having lunch. So instead of watching, something that's social or crappy, I, watch TED Talks while I'm having lunch. So you can find nuggets of time if you want to, but you really need to like want it in some sense. So don't do it if it's somebody's forcing you to get trained. That's not fun. Only when you're enjoying do you create the time for it.
Absolutely, absolutely, completely agree with that. But I know you've been a part of a lot of gender equality forums. You've been speaking a lot in terms of, on behalf of gender balance. And you mentioned something, we've been having a lot of discussions in March where we spoke about women in leadership. I I would be I would be amiss if I don't ask you this particular question. You mentioned that you love to be a generalist, right? But it's often seen that when a woman switches from different roles, right, uh, they tend to be labeled as confused, right? Oh, you're not specialist, you're not specializing in something. You've not really stuck around in one industry for a long time, or you seem to be very unfocused. And it becomes, I've always seen that it becomes very difficult for defend that skill, that hunger to gain new skills. They find it very difficult to defend that in their CV. What would be your advice for them?
It makes me very sad when I hear this, to be honest. Like it's just really sad, um, to hear that. I will caveat with the fact that all my skills are
Right.
kind of connected, and all my journey is also, it's not like I did it for like a month or 2 months or 6 months and I moved on. I spent sufficient time to skill up and master it before I moved on. So I would have spent, let's call it 2 years in marketing before I moved to sales, and I've spent the last, x number of years, 10 plus years in sales before I move on. So there
Right.
is that. And I really hope that, these comments are coming from a place of ignorance more than anything else. But yeah,
I
if you're moving every 6 months, fair enough. You know, perception can be different. I
Right.
would generally say that when you have a CV with different jumps, when you share your CV or when you're sharing your life story, understand what the thread is, and this only happens in hindsight. So
Right.
understand how the thread weaves to get you to where you are, and to the jungle gym experience. Like you can actually weave it if you just spend some time and say, oh, so I moved from PR to events to marketing to sales. How did that happen? And there's one of saying yes. I got bored doing what I was doing and I said yes to the opportunity that was there. The second part is I added skills on. I needed to understand how marketing works. I was working so closely with that team. I did a bungee there, or, I spent 6 months in that role learning how they think so that we can work together. So try and like sort of almost have a thread or a weaving of the story. PR
Right.
professionals are storytellers.
Yeah.
Tell the story of your life. Like don't just list your experiences. Tell the story when you're trying to communicate. And look, there are ignorant people all over the world. Just because you're in a developed like a country like Australia doesn't mean that you wouldn't meet such people. And sometimes you just have to ignore and move on. You know what you're doing. You know how you're doing it. And if you know why you've done what you've done, then nobody else has the right to make you feel bad about it.
Absolutely.
So
I love that answer. I absolutely love that answer. We have another related question on this. How is the gap viewed in professional expertise between India and other countries? When you take
I don't
care of
think
a
there is a gap. I don't think there is a gap. I do genuinely feel like whenever I've worked with anyone from India, whether it's India or Indian origin, they're, really equally smart, equally capable, equally fantastic. At the same time, I would say that there are things that you can improve on. So communication skills. So we Indians tend to speak a little faster. I definitely speak so much faster, and I have to be conscious to slow down and to take those pauses, so as to not sound rushed, so as to sound more deliberate and more conscious of what I'm saying. So that doesn't make me have a gap. That just means there's space to improve. Um, Genuinely, I don't think we're any less than any other country. No way.
Awesome, awesome. Love that. Another interesting one. In your opinion, has hyperlocal communication and marketing made an appearance across the world and specifically in Australia?
I do think so. Yes, I think hyperlocal and generally marketing as such has moved also because of the amount of data that's available, because of the, the mechanics that we're using, which is a lot more digital. We can do hyperlocal marketing. We can do targeted, personalized marketing. Yes, it's a trend that's been around, I would say, for more than 5 years now. It's been around. It's new, but it's also been around.
Yes, absolutely. It's been around for some time, but it's only now that it's become I think every buzzword has its time. I think
Yes.
it's time now for
Yes.
hyperlocal to shine. Yeah.
Yes, no, absolutely, you're right. I think the word hyperlocal, if I'm completely honest, is new to me. So maybe that's something that's coined in India, and I'm not aware. But personalized marketing, as I would call it, has definitely been around, where you're targeted with a specific, ad that suits your needs, right place, right time, right person, that kind of advertising or marketing.
Absolutely. So we're running out of time. See, it's already 30 minutes.
That went fast.
My last set of questions for you, right? How does one go about looking for a job out of the country? What is the best route?
So I use LinkedIn. I'm sure there are other ways, but I believed in LinkedIn. I believed in keeping my LinkedIn profile up to date and looking out for the roles on it and checking out, like I said, is there something that excites me? What skills do I have? Where I have? And the other thing I would say is if you've got 80% of the requirements, apply. Like, don't feel shy. And women in specific always want to apply for a role only when they meet 100 plus. So like they meet every single preferred and mandatory, every criteria is met, only then will I apply. No, if it's 80%, apply for it. Men, on the other hand, if they meet 50% of the criteria, they will say, yep, I'm going to apply for it. So there's a difference. So we need to start thinking slightly differently. So apply through LinkedIn. Reach out to recruiters through LinkedIn. If you are genuinely in a job searching mode, get the premium subscription, start writing emails. Don't add people and not send a personalized message. Like, that's the worst thing you could do. Have a personalized message for every add on. That's how I went. And then when you get into specific country, so
Right.
there was a colleague of mine who had a go no go list with her partner, and they basically decided that we want to go to, let's call it, Singapore, China, Taiwan, Japan. We don't want to go to US, UK. I'm just
Right.
making it up. So they had a go no go list, pre-decided with the partner, that helped them when they were looking for jobs or got opportunities to make those decisions faster, quicker. So it's always good to have a conversation pre-hand. Hey, I'm thinking we should move here or relocate there. It's important to have that conversation before. Because the worst thing is you apply, you get the role, and then you're like, oh, I don't want to leave India or any other country.
Absolutely. Your top three advice for PR professionals who are looking to make the shift.
PR is a huge field. Don't mistake PR for media relations or specific advocacy management or crisis management. PR is huge. Try and gain skills across PR that then extend on to other parts of marketing to open up the world into marketing, and then from marketing into other parts of the company, whether it's finance or sale. Um, the second, big advice would be open, say yes when you get the opportunity. Say yes, take a punt on your life, take a punt on your career. Be okay to do something that's scary and that you haven't done before. That will only make you learn more. And my last and final advice is keep learning. You just keep filling that sack full of skills. Just keep learning, and you never know how that will end up and help you in the next place that you go.
Absolutely. Big believer of upskilling and keeping, you have to keep learning. I spent almost 2 decades in the PR industry, and I still feel that I can learn something new every day. Last question of the day. Yeah. If you could go
Just
back,
kudos to you. I just want to say kudos to you and to all the founders to set up this upskilling platform for all PR professionals. It's a fantastic thing you're doing.
thank you. Thank you so much. uh, Last question. If you could go back in time and meet that
Mm.
fresh graduate who was writing about women empowerment and didn't think writing was necessary, what is that one piece of advice you would give that fresher?
Um, so funny. I live a life of no regrets. Like I genuinely live a life of no regrets. I don't think like I could give advice just to keep doing what you're doing, but I felt like every part, every mistake in my life has led me to be the person that I am, has led me to be, the strength that I have. And so I wanted to actually ask, the 20-year-old Sneha to change anything. I would just say, just don't be scared. Just do what you're doing. Do it, do it even more, even faster, if anything. I'm sorry. I like genuinely. It's just that's how I think. I don't think that. Um, I think that every mistake, every dark cloud, every issue that you've had in your life only makes you better and stronger, and makes you, shine brighter. So make that mistake, learn from it. Let's move on.
Absolutely. That's a wonderful, wonderful attitude to have. And interesting question from the audience. Absolute last
Mm.
one. What makes life more livable? And somebody saw an exhibition that you put up recently.
Yes. Sorry. What was the question? What makes
What makes
life?
life more livable for you?
Ooh. Um. What makes life more livable for me? Wow, that is a very deep question. Um, I think, and I've had an experience in my life which has given me a lot of perspective, and it's not related to PR or even career for that matter. I had a medical illness, and I got through it, life threatening and all of that, and I think that changed my perspective a lot.
Right.
Once you go on your deathbed, and when I was on my deathbed, you won't believe it, there were like two or three things that I said I wish I'd done. One of them was I wish I had done my MBA, which when I got well I completed, and the second was I wished I danced more. So so like even like when I was dying I was like, oh, I should have danced more. It's funny things that you feel when you're things. So what makes my life, what makes me more livable is just joy and happiness and learning new things. And like the painting exhibition you were talking about, I learned a completely new skill of acrylic art pouring. So I've done in oils and watercolors in a few years, but I learned a new, sort of a completely new set of skills just for that exhibition.
Absolutely.
And that made all my weekends so exciting. I would wake up in the morning and say, and I made mistakes and I made bad paintings, and it's fine. Like it's okay. But you just want to do something new and exciting and learn something new every day, every month, every time of your life. I think that's what makes life fun.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I love the attitude that you have towards life in general. And I do hope you get to dance soon.
Yeah, I've been dancing in my kitchen and in my hall ever since. So I think next time on the deathbed, that will definitely not be a regret.
Absolutely. But thank you so much, Neha, for joining us today and sharing so
Thank you.
much of life and experiences with us.
Thank you so much for having me and all the best. You guys are doing a fantastic job.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to take a minute to, say thank you to a few other people. Guys, if you have more questions, please put them in the comment section. Tag Sneha if you want, tag us if you want, and we will answer them as best as we can. You can view this session on Instagram. It will be saved on IGTV and on YouTube later. Thank you again for joining us today. Before we wind up, I will take a moment to thank my co-founders Sonali Sokhal and Pooja Trehan, our industry partner CII Young Indians Mumbai chapter, media partner Campaign India for supporting us. Thank you again. Next Saturday, we will see you on Facebook and YouTube for another inspiring session. Thank you again, Sneha.
Cheers. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.